to another Rooster Talk, where we speak with ASX companies and get an update from the guys who run the companies as to what's been happening. We're here at the UWA Club in Crawley on the campus of the University of Western Australia. And I've got Andrew Rodonjic back here from Venture Minerals, whose ASX code is VMS, and their market cap is currently 48 million. So welcome back, Andrew.
Good to be back.
Look, we're here talking about the latest announcement, Chalice, in your joint venture in Thor.
Yes.
Tell us what's the narrative.
Well, look, as part of that earning to get to 51%, which, you know, by the way, Chalice now met that, they had a drill program, diamond drilling program, which they've completed, and before that, they started a geochem program, geochemistry program, and they've completed that and got the results back, which has a couple of interesting new targets in nickel copper PGE or magmatic sulfide targets. So we're very encouraged, and the great part about those targets is that you know, they're actually haven't had ground EM testing on them, so and actually stronger than you know, the areas that they've been drilling in previously. So obviously we don't know the results of the drilling program just yet, and that'll be coming out soon. But very encouraging signs, and you know, you know, interpreting that data that was received, we can see that you know, potentially we've got a whole brand new target which we've yet to do any testing at all. So no geochem, no EM, but you know, as you know, I don't know if people are aware, but you know, the geochemistry, sorry, the EM, sorry, to the northern part of it is affected by electrical infrastructure. So there's power lines everywhere. There's a road with power lines running parallel to a telephone transmitter. So, you know, pretty much the top half is the EM data is no good. But the work done by Chalice and the Auger Geochem managed to get just before it got affected by the power line. There's some anomalies there which are coincidental with the targets generated by the geochem. So pretty exciting stuff, new stuff, and geologically speaking in a very interesting area.
I mean, the whole Thor project obviously was, you guys have done some work on it before, and Chalice came in for the joint venture. And I think, to me, when I saw the announcement, that, you know, first reaction is, oh, only 2 targets, you know. And so when you look at it seriously, though, where they've got this new only 2 targets, actually very significant, because from the layman's sort of look, it looked like it may be some sort of a bend or a structure or a jog or something in the main geophysical signature, and then now they've done the geochem on it. So I'm thinking, maybe there's a reason why I had that thought that this could be some sort of a jog there. Maybe you could sort of share a bit more, because that's kind of interpretation I get out of that map, right?
Yeah, look, so the magnetics is obviously a guide, and even at Julimar, you know, it's, you know, the mineralisation is kind of running parallel to the magnetics. It's not really the source, and certainly, you know, when quite often you see this in gold, you know, with our gold experience, you know that, you know, if you've got these shears or fault zones like that, there's usually this connecting structures, and you get this what I call a dilational zone. So you get this blowout. So if there's any mineralisation there, there's essentially a thickening of that structure, and usually where all those changes occur is usually we're going to get mineralisation deposited. So this looks like it's what's happening, because the new zone of the ultramafic we picked up is kind of is running parallel to the magnetics. And what's really interesting is people go, well, the magnetics, there's nothing magnetic there, which is clearly shown on the map. But you know, it's explained quite clearly by the talc, because the talc's a metamorphic product. So, you know, we've seen this, you know, in the gold fields, you know, talc chloride schists or talc carbonate schists are generally not magnetic, because they've been weathered preferentially, and the mag won't see it, so it'll hide the ultramafic essentially. But it's clearly there, and it's clearly an ultramafic. So, so obviously, identifying a good host unit is important. Structure is important for mineralisation development, and so, you know, and then if you start getting some anomalous kicks in your sort of magmatic metals, which is, you know, typically nickel, copper, cobalt, platinum, palladium and gold, which is, and this is what we're seeing, you start getting these targets. But, you know, we've barely tested. That area to the north is basically unexplored, and that new target even more so. So I see opportunity, you know, in areas that need to be, you know, parallel, and even the southern area needs more work, you know, I think, in terms of the geochem. But I was really encouraged. They got, you know, they did that 690 hole program, sorry, just to get a much bigger data set and exposure to areas that may not be as obvious. You keep focusing on the mag. The mag is a good lead in, but it's not the be all and end all. And certainly, you know, that's been the initial focus. And, you know, we've got some hits, you know, like that 2.4 metres of massive sulphide with nickel, copper, cobalt. It was a 0.5% copper, with some bit of palladium gold kicking around. And clearly that's come from somewhere, and maybe not necessarily at that location, but it might be a splay that's coming off ultramafic that's running parallel, you know, 100 or 200 metres away. So, you know, that's, you know, so it's okay. Chalice have come in, looked at the low-hanging fruit. We picked up something. We'll know the results of that. But, you know, like I said before, you know, I was really encouraged at this sort of thinking about the next steps, because sometimes it's not the obvious target, or not. And at the end of the day, it's our target, our basic work. So maybe our interpretation is wrong. We were looking for volcanic massive sulphides. Maybe with Chalice's IP and knowledge of the Julimar discovery, you know, they're much broader. They've got obviously experience. They've got more funding than Venture has. Venture's focused obviously at Mount Lindsay, so we can't be in two places at once. But you know, maybe they can unlock the potential of that area, which they've clearly saw when they did the joint venture 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's important. That although I'm looking at it and I'm postulating, you know, this and that, but when you think back of what Chalice have found, and they've obviously been working earnestly trying to understand Julimar, and they're trying to find something similar. I think the fact that they've come in and done geochem, which is as close to the truth machine, the drill machine, as we can, and then over printing the old geophysics, and they picked two targets where we think looks really, really encouraging from what we've just discussed, right? The dilational zones and all this kind of stuff. And then you say, oh, these guys have done it before, and they've seen it, they've seen more, and they've picked this area. You sort of say, hey, you know, maybe they're onto something, right? In terms of possibilities.
Well, look, let's you know, I was thinking about when you were talking just then. I'm going, we've got a 20-kilometre long target. Julimar, well, now it's 26, was 20 before. They found in the area that wasn't a state forest, the bottom part. So they got onto the best part quickly because of access issues. The question is that the best part? Is there more? Here, in the case of Thor, we've got access to the whole lot. So we've got to broaden a much bigger target area. So, you know, you can't sort of, if you've got many targets, where do you focus? It'll take a little bit longer to unravel. You know, Venture spent a couple of $1 million, so we've had a good start. They've added to that, so the airborne EM and ground EM, remember the EM is only effective for essentially half the target. And maybe the EM will work outside those power lines. So that power line's like right next to, if you look at it, figure 2, I think it is, power line does this, the dilational zone's here, and then the power line does that, and then there's the road with the power lines, and there's actually gaps with the data's completely up. In fact, all those anomalies are just a power line anyway, they're coming up. So realistically, we should just ignore that anyway. So that means that that ultramafic unit, there's a gap there. There's an area there which can get ground. So you can do some ground EM on that, or maybe, you know. So we never did airborne because we never owned that tenement. In fact, the interesting part is we pegged that tenement when Julimar was discovered. While the rest of the world was doing neurology, and obviously it's still debatable whether the ground there, because actually they pegged a big halo around their ground package before. So while they were doing that, we went, well, we got what Chalice later called the Julimar lookalike, that mag, feature. We went, oh, well, we noticed some tau occurrences there. We noticed some ultramafic there. Why don't we just peg that? And then that's come further to light with what work Chalice have just produced. But if you think about, you know, if all of a sudden you're confined to this little area here, you focus on that and you find something, great. But we're kind of like spread thinly along 20 kilometres, still generating that data set, and maybe focusing, maybe we need to maybe we just broaden our focus here. We're not saying that the bottom part or southern part of the anomaly is the best part. This might be a different beast. But, you know, and there'll be more of these along that western corridor, you know, which, you know, of the Yilgarn on the edge, right in contact, which they'll pop up, and they're not all going to be the same as Julimar, and some will be different, some will have some similarities, some will be completely different. So, yeah, look, yeah, I think, you know, Chalice have got to make an election to go forward, and you know, they'll have those sort of things to think about. You know, we're reasonably confident they'll continue to go forward. And if that's the case, then if another $2.5 million gets spent on infill or EM or expanded geochem, then all of a sudden, you know, we could be drilling other nickel copper PGE targets, you know, in the years to come, which may still yield significant discovery. I won't say it's a Julimar discovery, you know, because we haven't drilled a hole in it yet, but you know, it's certainly looking very encouraging, and it's, you know, and it continues to deliver new fertile areas, and I think it's really opened up, you know, it's really ripped the blinkers off now, that northern area, which, you know, we were looking for that lead in, and now we've got it.
I guess in terms of local prospectivity, I think it's pretty obvious. But what I like also is the fact that Chalice is now, obviously, with discovery of Julimar, there's this corridor that they talked about, right, sits on the margin of the Yilgarn, the western margin of the Yilgarn. And most of the thinking today is that, hey, you know, maybe we should be sticking to the margins of these cratons and stuff like that, because that's where most of these lithospheric or deep-seated structures may lie, and that's where we want the mantle's magma to come up, which is endowed in metals in most places. I mean, that must be something that's happening now, right? It's because now that you see this, and you see Thor having the same thing, and the green bushes and things like that, they all sit sort of in line with that. Must be a picture that's more prevalent now than before.
Well, look, I think we've always, you know, you know, we've pegged areas like this before, looking for those sort of conceptual targets, and you look at some of the world's biggest nickel deposits, and quite often they're in that, you know, in those either Proterozoic belts or in the Archean, which is what we're talking about here on the contact. So that area's, anyway, when you talk about geology, it's got to be the contact. That's what it most changes the reactivity in those and the conduits from the deeper sources, and that's the sort of the key. And even when you go to the Fraser Range, you know, that's not dissimilar. You know, in the same sort of, and you know, when you go and look at the nickel deposits in Canada, you know, same sort of deal. So not a total surprise, and we certainly, you know, very much aligned with Chalice on their thinking, conceptual thinking, which we've been, you know, thinking about. Not to say that I just started thinking about it, but I'm sure that, you know, part of the reason that is because, you know, they're close to the Yilgarn, and they're good areas to explore, and I believe will continue to yield new discoveries going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's opened up new province. I mean, the good thing about the last 2 years is a lot of money's been pumped into the industry, and a lot of our, you know, concepts showing some fruits, and I think that's opened up a lot of areas like the one we've just described. And then you're talking about Galileo finding that province, the Palladium province down in Norseman, and the, you know, discoveries in the Pilbara's opening up, and Patterson Ranges opening up. So I think there's a lot of, and it's South Australian, you know, people are talking about rare earths now down in Esperance, that, you know.
Well, it's where people haven't looked before, and it's really down to, you know, the data has been, all the focus, all the geological focus goes on discovery. It's not based on the best geology. And then you learn from that discovery and you keep applying. And you know, where's the best geological data? It'll be around the Kalgoorlie, Kambalda, you know, that Laverton tectonic zone. And you know, everyone goes through their phases. You know, if it's sticking out the ground, nuggets sticking out the ground, that's the best place to explore, isn't it? You know, that's the analogy. And you just work your way deeper from there, and then you learn about how that was formed, and then you learn from you know, with plate tectonics, you know, a bit of Australia came from here, or a bit of Canada, and it's attached to Africa, you know, to Brazil, that sort of stuff. You know, people start pulling these geological models together, and that takes time and effort. And people don't go looking for, you know, why people don't go looking for another pegmatite near Greenbushes? That's the obvious thing, but Greenbushes has been there for how long? You know, like it's, and you know, Australia's second largest gold producing mine is next to that contact in that zone, Boddington. You got mineral sands there. You got there's coal down there, and everything's happening there, and yet different commodities doesn't. It's because of the host rock will govern that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of pointing in the right direction, isn't it? And the reason these things exist, because there's usually deep-seated structures, but you know, sitting on the edge of these different rock suites where there's a dramatic change, lots of reaction zones, lots of things happening. There's more opportunity for mineralisation to be concentrated, and hence economic deposits to be developed, and that's the game changer. That's really what it is, and not to say that you can't get things inside the Yilgarn, you can. Clearly, that's happened. But it might be different styles of mineralisation, narrower, or it's still those deep crustal features will still continue to be found within the Archean. Yeah, look, it's a little bit horses for courses, but it's people going, oh, you won't find anything west of Southern Cross. When everyone said that, because the geology is too high, there's been too much metamorphism, everything's been split and strung out, and you know. Then you know, obviously, what Chalice has done is blowing a big hole in that theory, and all of a sudden, the whole southwest of Yilgarn's been pegged, pretty much. And but we know we did that several years in advance. So you know, we picked our targets, chrome-rich rocks. You need chrome-rich rocks to get basically nickel. We have that, and that's what Chalice have, and that's what we've got at Coolin as well. Coolin looks like it's sitting on potentially some deep crustal target as well. You know, I'm not saying it's a Julimar type of mineralisation. It might be more of your Kambalda style, and you know, time will tell when we do the airborne EM what we generate as targets. That's 600 square kilometres of it's, you know, basically been untouched. And so again, it's kind of opens. That's an area where it'll open up when someone makes a discovery, and then all of a sudden we'll learn about why it happened. But it's all after the fact. You know, but someone's got to come with a theory, some basic theory with a courage, and obviously funding is important to be able to test these theories. And this is where the big elephants are. The big projects are areas quite often where people have not explored before. Yeah, so that's what's exciting, and nothing excites the market more than a new discovery. And with Chalice going from 13 cents to $10. And we were talking before, you know, about even when the market's not good, a great discovery still has mileage.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden the focus is on that, and it goes up, goes to run. So, you know, should there be a discovery at Thor, then you know we will get, you know, a great response in the market, as would Chalice. And if we make a discovery anywhere, brand new tin discovery at Mount Lindsay, or a nickel discovery at Coolin, then the market will always like a discovery. And as long as you're well funded, which we are, you have the opportunity to deliver that. And you probably, I think, we come to the conclusion that you probably get a better reaction in a down market.
I think the point we discussed is that at the end of the day, the exploration process was going to happen anyway. It takes that length of time anyway. The market has its own thing. It goes up and down, sentiment goes up and down, but the process of us discovering is the same when the market's hot or when the market's not hot. and the discovery happens irrespective. It's like a series, continuous series of the Mythbusters, you know, the TV series, right?
Yeah.
It's the myth of not having this, the myth of not finding this, and it's been continuous being busted in that sense,
Yes.
right? And Thor, Julimar's, the Gold Road story, all sorts of stuff, you know. List is endless. Good time to lead to, you know, maybe, you know, what's happening in VMS in terms of other projects. A quick update on stuff. I know we just recently had a video, a Coffee with Samso, but anything that you want to add to that?
Well, look, where we are getting EM programs done. You know, this quarter, I'm anticipating at Golden Grove North. That's ground EM because the area is too small to do an airborne. It's left. We want to get done, and airborne EM, well, like I said, touched on before at Coolin, you know, we need a good first pass. You know, we've got those layered ultramafic intrusives, chrome-rich rocks, magnetic chrome-rich rocks, which almost look like domal structures to me. But anyway, we don't know nothing because there's hardly a drill hole in it, and we put a handful of holes and we've got 18 metres at 0.6 grams of gold. So it's very encouraging, but we're going to look at that sort of nickel copper PGE target now, and if that generates some interesting targets, then you know, we'll get look at allocating our funding to depending on the strength of the target. So you know, those things are moving along, but you know, like I said before, Mount Lindsay is our main focus. You know, if I had $1 to spend, I'd be spending it on Mount Lindsay, mainly because Chalice has been looking after the funding at Thor. But you know, it's you know, we'll continue to explore at Mount Lindsay to look at obviously the tin tungsten, so either Renison lookalike or another Mount Lindsay lookalike. Just to remind people, we've got a great nickel target, you know, huge EM anomaly north of Riley that is begging for a drill hole. So we're looking to get that sorted. So we've got some very good 48 EM targets. So there's more to happen there, even though, you know, we've got the rig focus on the Renison mine sequence at the moment and an extension of Mount Lindsay, but it's 2 out of the 48. So we've got a lot of work to do there. So only one rig, it's slow progress, but you know, it's you know, if the rig's got to go and do some more work for the pre-feasibility study, it may have to move on to that. We are looking at getting a second rig to do that sort of thing, so we can maintain the rage on the exploration, because even though people go, oh, you've got 100,000 metres of drilling at Mount Lindsay, it's really been about drilling known areas, down dip, extensional, infill, not really exploration. So exciting potential down there as well. So as always, venture has many options, and obviously very active on two of those at Thor and Mount Lindsay. And Mount Lindsay has several facets of itself, but you know, we have a bit more work and see what targets we can generate. Got new targets at Golden Grove North, and also at Coolin. So yeah, look, I suppose shareholders can look forward, or investors can look forward to news flow come out of that. And obviously these markets, you know, people have got to remember that, you know, even with the tin, a lot of the base metal prices, you know, the tin price included in that suite, still, you know, still pretty high. Even though they've come off a bit, it's still pretty high. Still the tin price is 26,000, which is high, historically speaking, high. So, and it's lost a fair bit. So, you know, it's kind of hopefully it's hit a bottom, and you know, I think the copper price is still above 8,000.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's still pretty strong.
I think a lot of people out there need to see this sector in a different light. Even though we've had this turbulence and things like that, and you know, the US talking about, you know, high inflation of 9.1% and all this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of geopolitical changes and movement that can stop suddenly, and the world will, the whole context of it changes. And I mean, I'm hearing more and more this statement, this narrative is that, just talking to another, you know, Coffee with Samso we just finished, he said, look, we're going back to the old Roman days where people conquer the world to get commodities, and not that we're saying this is going to happen, but I think we're going back without doubt to, I've got this set of commodities whereas you don't, and that's where the value is. And I think from an investor point of view, from my point of view, I think companies that have potential to have a resource or potential to be mined today is more valuable, say even 6 months or 12 months ago, because that's, if that world happens, then the guys that can mine in, say, in a jurisdiction like us, we're in Australia, is beneficial. I think it's hard to find those. We know that, to find a project that can go to mine.
And that just dovetailed beautifully into the alliance that Australia and US just announced a day or two ago about critical minerals. And that's because Australia is basically going to supply the US with critical minerals, which include tin and tungsten, obviously. So it's great for Mount Lindsay, and that's, you know, the world, in the markets are going to do what they're going to do, but the world is going to be wanting these minerals, and when things start opening up, you know, I expect that to happen quite soon, probably, you know, later this year we expect, and then all of a sudden people will go back and start thinking, yes, I need more lithium, I need more rare earth, I need more tin, I need all those minerals, and I need to be self-sufficient. And this geopolitical war between China and America, that's kind of, you know, China may want to go, I don't want to sell anymore, I want to use it myself.
I think there's a real chance. I mean, the Chinese are probably play a better long game than the Western countries do. He's probably buying a lot of cheap commodities out of Russia at this point in time. Everyone else is still paying premium. And may I remind people, you know, in 2015, I remember I made a small buy into a company that had some lithium projects in Zimbabwe. That was when lithium was hotting up, right? That's 2015, right? And today was still at where we are. So things do take time, a long time in this game. It's about taking positions, I guess, in some ways. And, you know, there's no secret, I love tin and tungsten and things like that, but it's still a long road, right? It's a long road game.
Oh, absolutely.
Look, Andrew, fantastic update. I think I like what's happening at Thor. And any last words from you? Any last comments that we haven't touched on before we move on?
I think we've pretty much covered it. But it's certainly, you know, the view in-house is that, you know, we see some very encouraging signs at Thor, and you know, the low-hanging fruit, it's not all about the low-hanging fruit. I think there's, you know, like I said before, we've been looking at half a target, it's been tested, and they've proven that now, and they've highlighted the fact that there's potentially a brand new target running parallel, hasn't even touched. So, you know, there's a fair bit of potential down there, which just needs some good exploration, and we couldn't get a better partner than Chalice, and you know, it's good to see our announcement actually gets their stock price up as well. So I think, you know, with a market cap of $48 million, you know, we've got, you know, so much happening that, you know, everyone's undervalued. They always say that, but I think we've actually kind of withstood the ups and downs recently reasonably well, and you know, each time we do a raising, people have made money out of it. So, you know, it's we continue to be active. We'll be focused on getting the studies out, and then people will be able to put a true value on our tin tungsten assets, start to get some, and in the meantime we make a discovery, then they'll just add further value to the story.
Okay, look, you know, good to get you to talk about the announcement. I think that's really what it needed. It was a bit sort of hard to understand the upside, but you know, it took me a while to grasp it. But it's fantastic to have you here. Hopefully, we'll continue to get more updates from you as things go. Again, thank you, Andrew.
Pleasure as always.